So you can't afford a more expensive gaming laptop, your budget is $699. Lenovo LOQ is now on your short list, which it should be, because there's a lot to like about this laptop, but you gotta be careful which spec you choose. If you choose the wrong one, that $699 might not feel like good money spent. And look, like this is a beautiful product. Like you look at this laptop, it looks a lot like the Legion 5 Pro. It doesn't have an aluminum chassis like the Legion 5 Pro, but it looks like it. It's plastic, but it still feels very durable. You do get a little bit of fingerprints, but harder to see because this is obviously gray. It does weigh about 5.25 pounds, so not the lightest gaming laptop, but I still feel like it's light enough that it's easy to move around. You do have the LOQ logo on the corner over here in the exact same position that you'd have Legion on the more premium devices. And I love the fact that they stuck all the cables on the back like they're more expensive models, or at least the ports, not the cables. But look, you have your power connector, which is 170 watt charging brick. You have USB-A port, RJ45, HDMI, another USB-A, and then on the right-hand side, you have another USB-A port, combo audio jack, camera switch, and then a USB Type-C port. This Type-C port is not Thunderbolt. It does have the outward-facing webcam, so it's super easy to open up with one hand, and then you can obviously lie the display 180 degrees. The one thing that I don't like about this display is it's a tiny bit wobbly. I would have loved a slightly tighter hinge. It's not the most wobbly display I've used, but it's a little bit too much considering that this is an easy fix. Now, the one thing you'll notice right away is that this keyboard is literally identical to the keyboard on the Legion 5 Pro. Like, there's no difference. You have the same feeling keys, the exact same travel distance, you have the numeric keypad, everything is exactly where it should be. The biggest difference this year is that they got rid of the control key on the right-hand side, and it's now a co-pilot key, so you can quickly access AI. Now there's a bunch of different options. Like this is the base model. You can't really change the RGB. It's just basically one color, which is white, but it does have 3 different levels if you want to reduce or increase the brightness. Power button is over here, and this lights up different colors depending on which profile you have it on between balanced and performance. Performance only works if you have it plugged in. And you have a touchpad that is not symmetrical with the rest of the laptop. Feels okay, but it is obviously plastic. Sticker placement is crazy. It's like they pin the sticker on the laptop and they just, put it anywhere they wanted. It's definitely a little on the crooked side, but the display is not 16 by 10. Like this is a traditional 16 by 9 gaming display. And you know what? For $699, it's actually not bad. Like look, it's 1920 by 1080, but the color gamut is good, very comparable to other mid-range laptops. Even the brightness is pretty average, like 313 nits of brightness, which is actually better than the Asus TUF F16, which I reviewed, which is double the price of this laptop. The color accuracy is good, like I'd still be okay doing any sort of design work on this. Overall, it's a very respectable panel. For the webcam, it is 720p, and this is exactly what it looks like. I'm sure the microphone's fine, but I mean, it's just completely blowing out my forehead. So not the best webcam, but it's obviously usable. Now, my review unit is using an i5 12th Gen HX CPU paired with an Intel A53M dedicated GPU. It has 12 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, a full HD display, and 512 gigabytes of storage. Now look, they had to make some sacrifices. I'd rather them do it on the CPU because over the last few years, CPU performance is not that drastic. But the Intel Arc dedicated GPU is not consistent. Okay, look, let's just get the CPU out of the way. Single core clock speeds are obviously slower than what's out today. Multi-core speeds does keep up with more newer processors, but it's obviously not the fastest processor on the market. This is a 3-year-old CPU. If you're buying this for any sort of application or productivity work, it'll handle the basic things just fine. Photoshop, it does okay. Premiere Pro, not the best since it's so CPU focused, but the interesting thing comes down to gaming. This Intel Arc GPU is just not consistent. I couldn't even run Dirt 5, it just wouldn't work with this GPU. Other games, the performance was decent. Some games it was tying the RTX 4050, and other games it was just well behind. And I think that's the problem about this dedicated GPU. It has use cases, and It's fine, but like it just doesn't compete with a proper RTX 4050. And like everything else is there. Like they did a good job of keeping the internals fairly cool with decent fan noise. Like this thing gets loud if you obviously have it on performance mode, but you can obviously drop down the fan noise if you want to keep it quieter if you're bringing this thing to class. Even the TGP is decent, like 70 watts, you know, like it's fine, but it's still not as consistent and as fast as a proper NVIDIA RTX 4050. And I feel like that's what's gonna make this kind of $699 price point very tough to swallow. As for the speakers, they're on the bottom and I really don't want to talk about them because they're just not that great. They don't get very loud and they're very hollow. Now, internally, everything is set up adequately for this type of CPU and GPU pairing. Like you have a good amount of thick copper heat pipes, big fans, lots of space for airflow. You do have a swappable Wi-Fi E card. You do have a 512GB NVMe SD, decent read and write speeds, but not as fast as today's standards. Second slot available over here if you want to upgrade to a second drive or have more storage. RAM is upgradable, and this is probably one area you can improve this laptop immediately. Like this is a 12GB DIMM. I didn't even know they make 12GB DIMMs, but apparently you can buy a second one and then increase this to 24. The battery is kind of disappointing. Like this is only a 60 watt-hour battery, and the battery life was pretty poor, like only over 4 hours before needing to charge. I feel like there's a bit more space and they could have put a bigger battery inside. So here's the thing. I think Lenovo nailed the basics for a good budget laptop. They did not sacrifice the display. Usually that's the one thing other manufacturers do. Like this is a good 1080p panel for the price point. I'm okay with them using an older CPU at $699, but I'm not okay with the Intel Arc GPU. It has the bones, it has the skeletal system. It's just not the right spec, because for the exact same price of $699, you can buy a Lenovo LOQ with an NVIDIA RTX 4050 and an AMD Ryzen 7000 CPU from last year. Not only is that processor going to be more efficient and give you better battery life, that NVIDIA RTX 4050 is going to give you more consistent performance, faster performance for the exact same price. I don't think this SKU should exist. Everyone should buy the NVIDIA one instead, and you'll be a lot happier for this price point. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.